It's Ron Reader digs the universe. I'm Ron Reader, and this is Ron Reader Digs the Universe, and tonight, Evangelicals tell us why Jesus didn't really mean that. I've been going after the Evangelicals a lot lately, just last week in fact, and I was going to find something else to talk about tonight. Leave the genocidal Yahweh worshippers alone for a bit, but they just seem to be right smack dab in the middle, always, of all things fascist these days. Like a new Pew Research Center study showing that far-right extremist Trump politics is in fact, more reliable indicator of whether somebody is an evangelical than being born again. Conservatism is evangelicalism, and evangelicalism is conservatism. They are the same thing now, and I think this turn of events necessarily removes any protection from criticism evangelicals think they deserve simply because they are religious. I mean, not that they ever did deserve any protection from criticism, but it is now overwhelmingly clear that evangelicalism is shit religion. Evangelicals need to be criticized at this point in time, and here is my primary criticism of them. One of the major unifying themes of their rhetoric is that Jesus didn't really mean a great deal of what he said. Like the We Are the World youth minister I encountered at a Southern Baptist church camp when I was 17. The guy hated the song We Are the World, which was a hit at the time because Christians are not the world, and yada yada, and shit. Okay, I asked him about Jesus feeding the hungry, ministering to the poor. I mean, the song's existence was solely to raise money for starving Africans, and he told me about several Southern Baptist charities, and that's how you're supposed to do it, and so on. Thus, Jesus' example of feeding the hungry and helping the poor is sent down the rhetorical memory hole of I gave at the office. As long as you kick back a few bucks on the offering plate every Sunday, you got it covered, because apparently feeding the hungry wasn't that big of a deal. Jesus didn't really mean that. And I find that point of view to be fairly typical among evangelicals. Or like the way the eye of the needle passage is universally taught. In brief, a rich man asks Jesus how to get into heaven. Jesus tells him to sell all his possessions, give the money to the poor, and follow him. Rich man can't handle it and makes a hasty exit. Jesus then turns to his disciples and tells them that it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to go to heaven. Pretty clear meaning there, I think. If you're rich, you are so morally compromised that you're on a highway to hell. But that's not how the evangelicals teach it. No. When the evangelicals teach it, they say that a rich man can, in fact, go to heaven. He just has to be really careful. Because eye of the needle is an idiomatic expression meaning small door or some shit. So what a bunch of weasels. You know, the rich can't go to heaven? No. Jesus didn't really mean that. He meant that the rich can go to heaven. Or like with the ordained evangelical minister. He was a Southern Baptist, actually. I was on faculty with back when I was teaching high school. It was a public school out in Baytown, Texas. He was teaching history or something. He wasn't there in a religious capacity. And when we met, The dude made it completely clear with his body language and tone of voice that he thought I'm the devil. He knew nothing about me other than that I was a liberal theater teacher, but he treated me like I'm a gay rapist preparing to violate him. There was no mistaking the subtext. This Christian man hated me because of what he thought I am. And again, I find this attitude to be fairly typical among evangelicals too. If you're a feminist, you're a witch. And if you're a witch, you're a feminist. Burn 'em all. But what about the second greatest commandment as articulated by Jesus? Love your neighbor as yourself? Oh, yeah, that's right. Jesus didn't really mean that either. Or maybe he did, as long as the word neighbor doesn't include liberals, immigrants, the poor, the whole gay, lesbi, trans, queer spectrum, Muslims, feminists, and so on. Long as none of these people are understood to be neighbors, Jesus thinks it's just fine to hate them. And let me tell you, evangelicals really do hate them. My old pal, the Right Reverend Scott Shirley, anarchist Baptist, and like me, a recovering Southern Baptist, reminds me that pretty much anybody can claim to be a Christian regardless of their actual beliefs. So, okay, it's not for me to say that evangelicals are wrong with their understanding of the Bible, but I do think it's fair to say that a great deal of evangelical theology and thinking is about minimizing or straight up eradicating the gospel's focus on love as highest virtue, about explaining why Jesus didn't really mean that. Personally, I don't think evangelicals can be trusted any longer as honest moral agents, and that's really, really frightening, because their morality is essentially now conservative morality, which necessarily means that conservatives aren't moral at all. I'm Ron Reeder, and this has been Ron Reeder Digs the Universe. Join me, Ron Reeder, again next week for another episode of Ron Reeder Digs the Universe. If you're a feminist, you're a witch. And if you're a witch, you're a feminist. Burn 'em all.